Hello, hello. Welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show on a Tuesday night, day after Game 5. Eric, how you doing?
Special edition. I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, this is a special edition. A little emergency pod, a little bit to talk update everybody on Tyrese, but also to talk about Game 5 and what we see going on in Game 6. But as always, everybody, these are our handles. If you see them on the bottom, it's at Game Injury Doc and at Eric B. Mack. You can find us at all social media platforms. And then we have, of course, the Hoops Rehab Show YouTube page. Please subscribe, follow, like any of our videos, share any of our videos. Definitely trying to grow that. As always tell you guys, we want this to be a live interactive show. So please comment on the YouTube or Twitter. Anything, any updates, anything you guys want to hear about, or just have questions. And then we will update the pod after the show. So you can get your podcast at wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, or anything else. But it is the Hoops Rehab Show. And if you can, please give us a rating and comment on there. That'd be greatly appreciated. But with no further ado, should we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. So we usually wait a little bit because we're doing some live reactions after the game. But since we came on a day later, because I wanted to kind of see how the injury was going to go with Tyrese and if they're going to give any updated information. So it's kind of good to go on the next day because now we kind of have a full, better detail of what's going on. But let's get to our Something Happened Today segment right away. What is going on with Tyrese Haliburton?
Damn.
So I told y'all, if you've been watching our show throughout the finals, after game 2, he was limping at the podium. And the next day, it kind of reported he was having some ankle soreness. To me, that was a lot of just coach talk, team talk, and they were kind of hiding what was the real issue. When I saw when he was practicing going into game 3, he had tape going up his calf. And normally, if you have an ankle injury, you do not have tape. So regardless if he had some ankle soreness, he might have. But I think the real issue is having some tightness, soreness in the calf. And obviously, this got aggravated in game 5. So let's kind of break down the play that it happened. He was trying to push off on his right, kind of stumbled and tripped in front of Chet. And you can immediately tell he was in pain. Kind of was laid on the floor for a little bit. Went back to the locker room with a wrap on his leg, which is more than likely heat, and came back in the game. But from that point on, was never the same. He didn't have any explosiveness to get by any defenders. And if you don't have any speed against this OKC team, Eric, what do?
They'll run you at the gym.
Yeah, they create havoc on defense. And
absolutely,
pretty much the whole second half, it was a couple dribbles right, a couple dribbles left, could not penetrate for the life of him. And then a couple passes here and there. He made no field goals, right? Had about 4 points just on free throws, but obviously did not look like himself. So I'll throw this to you, Eric, before we kind of break down the injury a little bit further. But what do you see in game 5 and just kind of how that looked?
I think when it was probably a few days ago, we were like knocking on all the wood around us, like imaginable, when we said the good thing about like the series, it seems to be a pretty healthy series. And it's just like, right. It's just like let's just let the best team win. And so now we still might get the better team that wins, but it does just create a sense of, man, like I don't even know if we're going to see a game 7 now because Haliburton, he just does a lot for the team, and we've been talking about it all playoffs long. We don't have to go down the list. It's tough. Like when he's playing well, and not necessarily like a bunch of points, but when he's kind of filling that stat sheet, being the aggressor, kind of what you alluded to with when you are a step slower, OKC will swallow you up, and so. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they're at the point, like if they would have been up, let's say if they were up 3-1, they would have lost game 5. I would have been like, damn, but at the same time, it's like, hey, they can just somehow muster up one of these last two games and just have a magical moment maybe from someone else. But the fact that they got to get two, it's going to be tough, and obviously a tough injury at the worst possible time.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I know we said previously, last show, that I don't think OKC would lose two in the series, and then now adding the injury, it just makes it that more harder for Indiana to kind of get by in the series. But let's break down what we know. Shams reported earlier today that he does indeed have a calf strain, and they are getting an MRI to determine the severity. More than likely, just based on some of the reporting, is that he probably has a grade 1. They want to double check on the MRI whether or not that is actually a grade 2. So when we think of like scales and when we look at the calf injuries, and when you have a strain, anywhere from 0 to 25% is a grade 1 strain. Anywhere from 25 to 50 to almost 75% is a grade 2, which a grade 2 would be a partial tear of the calf. A grade 1 is more like micro tearing. It's not full-blown tear or anything like that. And then obviously a grade 3 would be a full tear of the calf muscle, which would obviously more than likely put him out of any possibility of him playing. So with that being said, if this was a regular season game or even first round of the playoffs, he's more than likely not playing game 6, right? He's more than likely going to be off for a week or two to recover if it was a grade 1 strain. If it was a grade 2 strain, you're looking at more 4 to 6 weeks. So we saw this earlier in the playoffs with Aaron Gordon, even though it was his hamstring. It was a hamstring strain, but they still function in the same way. Any type of muscle strain is difficult to play on, especially when you get into the grade 2, the partial tears, right? And we saw that with Aaron Gordon. He obviously tried to play for game 7, but just didn't look like himself, wasn't able to move like normal. And moving forward, we don't know what we would have seen if they would have won that game. So
yeah. So yeah, I was just gonna say, like, definitely it being the finals, it's gonna be interesting because maybe we're just about to get to it, but you obviously don't want to risk an injury where you're out a year or two, right? So it's kind of tough where it's like, this is big. It's going to be tough to get back to where we are now. But I mean, I don't even want to say it, but I know that a calf injury could potentially
we never want to say those words, but
have an effect on something else, right?
Obviously, I think in the back of everybody's mind is Kevin Durant, right?
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking of.
It happened in the finals. Wow. And he had a calf strain, which he suffered early in the playoffs in round 1, I believe. So he was already out about 4 weeks at that point, but he had a pretty severe calf strain. It was like a grade 2. And obviously we know what happens next. Played well in the first quarter and then tore his Achilles. So the breakdown of that goes this. So once you strain a muscle, the muscle becomes inflamed, irritated, and becomes immediately weak. So once you have inflammation, it's going to cause what we call like inhibition. So it's just muscle weakness. So that calf is not going to fire the same way it would normally do, right? So if your calf muscle is not as strong and is not able to withstand pressure, forces go down to your Achilles more, right? So it just puts your Achilles at more of a risk than it should be. Not saying that if he goes out right now, he's going to blow his Achilles. Nobody's saying that. But there is a risk if he has a more severe calf strain that could be a result, right? And we've seen earlier in the playoffs, right? We've seen Damian Lillard, who was taking time off for the DVT, came back. He had a previous Achilles tendonitis in the previous year. So he had a little bit of precursor to the Achilles and tore his Achilles. Tatum's was really out of nowhere. There's nothing that was kind of like that we knew about, that he had any previous injuries that we were made aware of. But that's just the result. So strain can leave the weakness, which can decrease that strength in the calf, which can put more forces on your Achilles tendon.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, great. Like, just kind of information. We know that the Achilles, we saw what happened with Kevin Durant, sorry, just such an innocent move that he made, which tore it. But then, as you mentioned, hey, there was also Jason Tatum, where we don't feel or we didn't hear about any pre-existing injuries, and it can kind of shows you it can happen at any time. I think with Hallie, he's just got to really listen to his body. We know that they are a better team with him in there, but if he's going to be at 50-60%, it might be a thought where, hey, we're going to be at home, we're going to have the crowd with us, we're going to just treat this like as a game 7. We saw some guys step up in game 5 towards the end there, and so maybe that's a thought, like, hey, like, let's just go swinging, and maybe somebody else will kind of fill the void for at least one game, right? And so I think it just depends on the severity. If it's borderline 2, and obviously we know 3 would be a no chance, but if it's borderline 1 to 2, I get it. It's these moments don't happen very often, but man, we know that there's the risk versus reward. You got to weigh that out, and I guess we'll find that out on Thursday.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to try to play and do everything he wants to play. Rick Carlisle is just going to have to be the judge of how he's moving around, because his game is predicated on speed and being able to move around on the court everywhere, penetrate, be able to kick and run the break. And if he doesn't really have that, he doesn't have the ISO game to create anything. And you saw that in game 5. Right? He's not backing down somebody and making a fadeaway or anything like that. His game is predicated on speed, predicated on moving around, penetration, and obviously making the right pass. And you saw in game 5, he just wasn't able to be his normal self. So there comes a point in the game where if you see that early on, it might just be more beneficial to be like, hey, you gave your effort, you brought the energy for your team. Maybe they take a quick lead, that Willis Reed moment, and then you bring in like TJ McConnell to kind of bring that speed and aggression that he's been bringing and that he brought in game 5.
Yeah, I mean, I know that was a name we're probably going to talk about in this show, TJ McConnell. He was really been a good. He's been a good pacer, solid. Hasn't had as much of a role this season, or at least second half of the season and in the playoffs. Yeah. But obviously, he was a guy that was ready. And hey, we're going to talk a little bit about it, but maybe he could have played a little bit longer there. And so that's probably something that Rick Carlisle is going to think about. As you said, is it going to be that Willis Reed moment? I mean, I know we probably thought that with Aaron Gordon, and then, he ends up playing a lot of the game. Right. And so, different type players, different injury. And so, we'll see if I could see him trying to give it a go, as long as it's not super serious. And then at that 5-6 minute mark, I think Rick Carlisle will have a big decision to make, whether this is going to work or not for them.
Yeah, and the reality is he was able to move around okay on the court. Like, it wasn't like he was limping constantly.
Right.
He was just didn't look like himself. And you can tell by his game. You can see it in his demeanor. You can see it in his face, just the way he was. He looked like he was being cautious as much as possible. But it's also, does he cost his team on defense too, right? Because he's not able to move around like normally. So it becomes more of a liability on defense, and he's not doing as much on offense. So I think they just got to play by ear and see how he feels going into game 6. But maybe he just brings that. You're in the home crowd. You bring your crowd going. You're getting your team going, and then kind of give it off to the rest of the boys on the bench, and just expect your bench to step up for you.
Do you think I know if it's bad enough, it probably won't matter, but does the extra day, I mean, it can't hurt, obviously, but does that help a little bit? I mean, if it is like not a very serious injury, does the extra 24 hours, I mean, is it that much of a difference if they were to play tomorrow night versus Thursday, and it's like a concern, but not a huge concern? Oh,
for sure. Yeah. The extra day of rest, right? So he's going to get about 72 hours in between, right? So that, if you think about acute inflammation, it takes over in the first 72 hours. The lucky part for him compared to like regular us, right, is he's going to get treatment around the clock. Yeah. So that will speed up the process of healing as best it can. And we saw with Steph Curry in the second round, right, where he had a strain, and it just first time he's ever had a strain, and he didn't really know what to do with it. It was probably pretty significant. It probably wasn't as they kind of labeled it in the media. And even though he was given some extra time in the series, still wasn't able to get to that point. So I think this is obviously finals. This is more than likely going to play because he knows this could be the last game. So they're going to try to give him as much treatment around the clock as possible. And that will speed up some of the healing and probably more make him feel less pain and discomfort. That's probably what it will do. Right. However, that doesn't change the fact that the calf is probably weaker than it would be if he didn't strain it.
Yeah, I mean, like a good point. He's obviously getting the round the clock treatment, and it's going to probably feel better as you get into the game. But when you sprint a few times against the Thunder, that's when we'll see, how he's really feeling. So we'll look out for that early on Thursday for sure, if he plays.
That's for sure. All right, so we'll probably get a little update tomorrow, at least on the severity, if they even say it or not. But I wouldn't. I think they have a good idea of where it's at. With it being probably closer to a grade 1, but they just want to make sure it's not a grade 2. But let's get to game 5. I mean, because that was a hell of a game, and the Pacers came this close in that third and fourth quarter to really taking control of that game. But what did you see as far as was it what you expected at OKC? Kind of some home cooking?
Well, I did say OKC was going to win by 11, so I guess I was kind of expecting it. But I can't say I didn't expect it because you got to expect anything from the Pacers. But once in the second, late second, early third, OKC was in control, double-digit lead. You got to give props to Indiana. I mean, they battled back. Like all of a sudden, they're like, oh shoot, they're down by 2 with like 8 minutes left in the fourth, and I'm like, here we go. And so it's they came back, but obviously it was like maybe a little too late. OKC then went on a run for themselves, and I think that was kind of like the dagger, like in the 5, 6, 7 minute mark of the fourth, where Indiana kept coming back, and then finally OKC broke through, and it was just too much for Indiana. And I think, it stems back, unfortunately, to that game 4 where, Indiana really, really had to win that one. And just historically, finals or not, when it's 2-2, game 5, home court advantage, just that home team that has that game 5, just really, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but, there's a high probability that they're going to win that game. It's just kind of the way it is in the NBA. And that's, truly what happened. And obviously there was a lot of intricacies in the game, and we know some stars showed out and everything on the OKC side. But at the end of the day, the number 1 seed, 68 win Thunder are 1 win away from a championship.
Yeah. For me, it just boiled down to that third quarter and then the start of the fourth, right? You had TJ McConnell playing out of his mind. Was making every basket, was getting steals, was dishing. Obi Toppin was playing really well, kind of created that momentum. They were still down, by a certain amount of points, but they were creating that momentum to get into the fourth quarter. Then TJ didn't play. It started kind of going into the fourth, and Haliburton was in, and the whole time I'm like, man, do you continue with that momentum? Like, is he going to get tired? Is TJ getting tired? And you maybe give him a little break and then kind of bring him back. And I thought they would just give him maybe a minute or 2 break and then bring him right back in because he was so hot and he was playing so well. But they didn't. Yeah. And to me, I feel like Rick Carlisle made a mistake. He obviously trusts Tyrese, and he knows what he's done in this playoffs, especially in the fourth quarter. But when you brought it down to 2 points with like 8 minutes to go off the Siakam 3,
yep.
Yes, TJ was not in during that time. And that's fine. So I understand, like, you're making this run still, but you can see what Tyrese was doing at that point. And I think if they would have injected TJ McConnell there, you would have probably more than likely maybe kept pushing that momentum, maybe even taking the lead. I just don't think, I don't know if he was going to bench Tyrese, or just let him kind of play it out? What do you see with that, where it's just like he allowed him to keep playing even though he probably shouldn't have?
Yeah, I mean, so McConnell definitely played like the most minutes, and in the finals, and maybe I don't know about the playoffs, but it's definitely has to be up there, 22 minutes, and they figured probably if he plays the last 8, that'll be about 30, and that's way more than they probably thought that they could get from him, and so, but you had to kind of take a look at the eye test, and they were really at their best with him in there. To your point, Siakam hit the 3. 2-point game with like 8.5 left. And so it was really anybody's game. It's tough because it's like, wow, this is the team that we have on the floor brought us from down 10 to down 2 in a matter of a couple minutes. But maybe once OKC stretched it back up to about 7 pretty quickly, I think that would have been in time to like, hey, we were playing our best ball with him in. Definitely, we got guys out there that are kind of laboring. Hallie obviously was laboring, and I think it would have been a good time. I know hindsight's 2020, but the proof was in the pudding that they were at their best with him in Game 5, and I don't even think he saw the floor. Right, the last
he came in with like I think about 4 minutes, and they still had Haliburton in though.
Right.
He came in with like 4 minutes, but like at that point it was not far too gone, but it was just like the momentum of OKC. What Jalen Williams was doing was just astonishing. Phenomenal. In the fourth quarter. And so they've already created that like go, and they were like so aggressive on defense too at that point. I just think at that 8-minute mark, right, he cuts it to 2. It's like, all right, let's get him in there to bring you a little bit more boost to kind of create that. Him, Obi Toppin, obviously just all playing together. And I think it could have been a different outcome. But also, that boy, Jalen Williams, was not going to be stopped last night. And I think he arrived in NBA center stage last night. And to me, that is scary for the rest of the NBA. What do you think about that?
Yeah, when you arrive in the NBA finals, that's pretty sweet. I mean, look, not that we were riding him. I mean, we know that he's a good player and he was our all-star, and we knew that that we were going to need the Thunder were going to need a consistent number 2 because SGA was going to do what SGA does. And it's funny because I thought about it, I'm like, man, this young man is like in his 3rd season at the end of the day. I know he has all these accolades so far, but second best player, all-star, but sometimes we got to sit back and like, I mean, I know we talked about it a bit, but these guys are young. And so like, man, let's let these guys mature right in front of our eyes. And he has. I mean, he's like put up, an amazing last 3 games. And this just capped it off. A 40 spot in the NBA finals in your 3rd season, 2-2, all or nothing Game 5. It's got to stack up there with just one of the, all-time, great performances in finals history, which is just crazy to think.
Yeah. I mean, some people were comparing it to, Scottie Pippen, right? Like you were just like, he had his moment. Scottie Pippen never had a 40-point game in the playoffs. That's what it said. And I was like, damn, like that's pretty impressive. I mean, I would have to look. I think he might have had one with like, not with the Bulls, but I think I heard something like it was like 37-ish.
I wonder when MJ was out, when he was out that one year.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if. Like, do you remember if like that year possibly? But anyways, just when you realize that somebody like we said it like go after Game 2, Jalen Williams have to have a big Game 3. He had 26, then he had 27, and then he had 40. So he's definitely just on that trajectory. And like you said, he's in his 3rd year. Like, who's doing this in their 3rd year this well? Right? It's pretty amazing to see. Yeah,
no doubt. Sorry, I was just like trying to look real quick, but like it's funny you bring up Scottie Pippen because it was just like I don't know if he got a 40 spot, but it kind of reminded me of like
37 was his career high, and it was with Houston. So
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah. So that's why I was like, I remember hearing 37, and then
He's
actually
only played in
with
one
the
series with
Bulls,
Houston too.
yeah, with the Bulls is only 32. So like when you think about that, you're like, man, because when you think of Scottie Pippen, you put him up in upper echelon, right? You're like, dude, that dude, Hall of Famer, obviously. The Batman to Jordan's Robin. I mean, sorry, Batman was Jordan, he was the Robin, etc. Right? But regardless, his like 40 spot in the finals in his third year is pretty damn good.
Yeah, because I was thinking like Kobe. I mean, obviously, young Kobe was like a 2 or like a 1B or 1A, right, with Shaq. But
Yeah.
Kobe, when he was in the finals, I believe it was his fourth season.
Fourth season.
Fourth season. So third to fourth season is that's like a big,
but
like
Kobe was 20, he was 21,
oh yeah, the age.
right?
Yeah, there's the age thing too. Yeah.
I remember he was 21, but it was his fourth year because he started at 17.
Yeah.
But like what, Jalen Williams is 23. Regardless, whatever it is, right?
Right.
Years in the league. I think now he's going to get the recognition that he's been working so hard this season with. And to me, OKC goes on and wins this next year. You're like, you got a MVP. You got arguably like a two-way top 5 player because of his age and what he did in the finals.
He's a hell of a defender too, so he's kind of like a Scottie Pippen.
He's literally like all NBA defender and an all NBA offensive player. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of right now top 5 two-way players. He's probably in the top 5.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, you want to say Kawhi, all that stuff, but people are getting older. Paul George is getting older. I'm not really putting him in the best two-way players right now. Not anymore. Jaylen Brown is up there, right? He's a great defender. He's a good offensive player, but all around package, dude is going to be pretty epic. And this is third season. Imagine him in like 2-3 more seasons.
Oh yeah, I mean this is exactly why. After if they win this series, and why a lot of people are picking them to be pretty dominant the next 5 seasons or whatever, right? Until maybe the cap gets them or something. But it's because they know that you're him and Chet. They're just going to be a year older and a year better, most likely, and that's pretty scary for the rest of the league.
Yeah, that's for sure. And even when you think about Chet, like him on defense, he can guard 1 through 5, which is kind of crazy. He can switch onto your point guard. He can obviously guard the center. He flashes. He can guard you in the perimeter. He can guard you in the paint. And overall, like they have their best offensive players are some of their best defensive players, which is wild to say about a team. I don't think you really have too many teams that just have both, right? Steph Curry wasn't known for his defense, right? I think SGA is a much better defender than Steph Curry. And when you look at Klay Thompson was a great defender, Draymond was a great defender. But overall, you look at those 3 players and you're like, hey, they stay together. This could definitely be the next Warriors dynasty.
Yeah, so you said Klay Thompson, that would be like another one. I know he has like a Game 6 Klay like nickname, which is know more so because of the Western Finals against the Thunder, but he, like it'd be similar to him and when he'd have like a big game in the finals, two-way player. He doesn't, not nearly the defender he was like post injuries versus pre, but yeah, that's another comp too. Obviously different stratospheres with, in terms of shooting, but he still can get put the ball in the hole, and that's what counts.
Yeah, no, that's a great comp, especially if you're just comparing the two, right? You look at Steph Curry, SGA.
Yeah. I
mean, they're both great players. Steph Curry is just more changed the game, totally out of this world when it comes to shooting. SGA is just more the Michael Jordan mold where he's going to hit that 19 and 20 footer. He can get to the basket. He can get to his spot and shoot. Then you go Jalen Williams, Klay Thompson, both two-way players, right? I think overall, Jalen Williams can be more of a playmaker. Like he can dribble the ball, he can get to the basket. Versus Klay was more just a spot-up shooter. So he offers a little bit more versatility. And then when you go Draymond, Chet is a better offensive player, but obviously Draymond just brings a whole different vibe to the team defensively, and then also just at that point forward kind of position. But
yeah, little Lou Dort, I guess, but obviously Draymond does just so much more. Just he does a lot of things that are not on the stat sheet, even at this age. But yeah, it's when you start like kind of comparing the teams, like they both have like I mean, there's different like I guess philosophies and things, but just that like player to player, it's quite interesting. Some of the similarities, young at that point. Young coach Kerr's not as I guess young anymore, but it's crazy to think to see what's going to happen if they win this finals.
Pretty fun to see. All right, so let's get into what does Game 6 look like? Is this are we going to be having schools out on Thursday night with the Pacers, or is there any chance for Indiana to win this game?
I mean, there's a chance. I mean, there's always a chance. They have shown that they have the ability to win a big game at home, when their back's against the wall, which is like they can't get more against the wall right now. I mean, personally, I obviously, thought OKC was going to win the series, which is not, anything to, I mean, it was there. That was obviously the popular choice. And I think people that were in like the game that the win in 6 camp was probably saw how it is now, right? Obviously 2-2, win game 5 and then win game 6. And so, I mean, I ultimately think they probably do finish it off, but I do think Indiana still has a chance because they're so gritty. They're not going to go out like that. They're going to say, hey, let's take it to, if possible, take it to a game 7. And you never know what could happen in a game 7. A couple of guys have an off night, right? It's going to be game 7 of the finals. So the jitters are going to be real. And so Indiana has to ride that wave of the crowd, play exactly how they played in game 3 and most of game 4. And I think they will have a chance to take it to 7. It's just going to have to play 4 quarters of basketball.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I felt like every time we've counted the Pacers out, they somehow find a way to win.
Absolutely.
However, I felt that they lost this series in game 4.
Right.
By the way they lost and going up, imagine if they were up 3-1 and then lost this game 3-2 and this whole Tyrese Haliburton injury happened, right? You would still feel like shit. Like, I mean, he's injured. That's not a good thing. However, you were up 3-2 and just need to win one more game. And going home for that game 6 would have been such a different atmosphere. So I kind of feel like they've lost that momentum in this series. And OKC has figured out what they need to do to win. And Jalen Williams right now is making sure he does his part. And it's not just all SGA. And it's like, SGA had what? 34-10 last night, or 31-10. So he had a great game, but it's almost not even talked about because of how well Jalen Williams played. Because SGA went from having 0 assists to 10 assists. So he did a great job in trying to figure out how to get his teammates involved there.
Yeah, I mean, win or lose, we know what. Other than that weird assist total from 0 to 10, we know that what his kind of final stat line is going to be. For the most part, from a point standpoint, we were just wondering who else was going to join the party, and I think we know that now. And so, I mean, if Indiana would have won game 4, it would have given him a little bit of a real estate there to kind of, hey, we got to just win 1 out of 3 games, and I think that could have been possible. Like, we just need one of these next 3 to just
exactly
everything kind of just hit for us. But now it's, you got to win 2 in a row, and so I mean, I can't think of it that way though. It's easier said than done to have that philosophy. But they truly, truly need to just say, hey, we got to win a home game on, Thursday, and, obviously go from there. And so you kind of mentioned that OKC kind of is figuring things out. And that does happen sometimes in a series as the series goes on, like maybe the quote unquote better team, it just starts to kind of figure things out. And, they see things like after 3 or 4 games that they probably didn't see before the series started. And along with that injury, it's kind of seems like it's leaning that way.
Yeah, they've definitely found a way to create mismatches, and I think that's what they struggled with the first 3 games. And they kind of honed in on that in the fourth game, especially in the fourth quarter, where they're creating those mismatches for SGA with a high screen and roll. But I think overall they've obviously watched a lot of film. Their coach is doing a great job of making adjustments, and Game 6 is going to be tough to close out in Indiana, anyways. And both teams are going to be looking. They don't want to go home, right? So you hope Indiana comes out with this flare of just like complete energy. I just don't know if that's going to be taken away because of Tyrese, because that's who drives their engine, right? Who drives their train. So I'm kind of more pessimistic on him right now. Obviously, I picked Indiana to win the series, barring injuries,
Right.
and I think that's going to affect the series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure yourself or anybody that picked Indiana, the thought was that most likely they're going to need to wrap it up in like a 6-game set.
Yeah.
And so it was just all about that fourth quarter in Game 4, and it is what it is. Sometimes that's what comes. We know all those champions out there. Us following the Lakers, we know there's been some times where it's like, man, the two teams are head to head, and just that one game, that one quarter, made a whole difference in the series, and that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, and Indiana has to look at it like we were saying about Tyrese, right? If you give him the first 5 minutes and he doesn't look the same, you probably bench him at that point and just allow your actually players on the bench to actually step up and try to win you that game. And at that point, they don't play until Sunday, right? So technically, he would have had about 6 days of off. If he doesn't really play much in Game 6 or whatnot. Like, you just got to see how he's feeling. But then at that point, it'd be like, all right, all hands on deck on Game 7, see what he can do, try to give it his all, and try to play. I just don't know how much we're going to get out of him in Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about earlier, it's just a matter of us just seeing it, him going out there, and us, and of course, more importantly, the Pacers getting a feel of how it's going to look, and not hooking, him too late, right? They got to make that decision real early before it gets away from them.
For sure. And before we wrap up the series, what are your predictions for Game 6? I mean, we kind of know where you're leaning in the series, but what's your prediction?
Yeah, no, I think like it's going to be one of these games where Thunder is going to have like, kind of up 6 to 10 points throughout. And then, maybe a little run by Indiana, kind of how they do. And I think they, end up like last few minutes, you'll see the bench of OKC start to giggle and, cheer up and kind of feel that we got this. And I would say they're going to win by 8-9 points and probably finish it off. I mean, I really am hoping for Game 7 because there's nothing more exciting than a finals Game 7, but I just feel like it's probably time to wrap up the series. You?
First time I'm picking them, but I think OKC is wrapping up this series.
Yeah.
And it's more for me the fact that Tyrese is injured, and that to me is a huge difference with this Pacer team. I still feel like they can go on a run, they can create some points. I just think when it boils down to that fourth quarter and how OKC has been closing out the last 2 games, that's going to be the tough part. Who do you go to? You have Siakam, but if you don't have Tyrese function the way he normally would, it makes everybody else's job that much harder. So I got OKC wrapping up this series and hoisting their first NBA championship.
And that's something. I guess they both would be going to school, right? Because the season's over, but one is going to be excited about summer break, and the other will probably enjoy this, run in a couple months. But there's only one thing you want to do when you get to this point. You want to win it, and so there's going to be one unhappy team, obviously.
That's for sure. And then before we get on out of here, we got to bring LeBron into the update here.
Absolutely.
So a couple of things with LeBron. He made a statement today or the other day that his goal is to have his knee ready for training camp. So, number one, he's playing next year. Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
so that we can qualm all that retirement stuff up for next year.
Yeah.
Number two, it's kind of interesting that training camp's a pretty long time from now, but maybe that bodes to how significant the knee injury was, and he had an MCL sprain. Grade 2 is what they said, so that's a partial tear. Typically, that takes about 8 weeks to kind of heal, 6 to 8 weeks. Just to allow the normal healing time, and then he'll have to rehab and kind of get that knee stronger, get everything surrounding it much stronger. I think it's a good thing for him because last season, I mean, the injury is never good for him, but last season he had to play in the Olympics. He played nonstop, right?
Yeah.
Played from Olympics, went into training camp, played the whole season for the most part, didn't have any major injuries, had that little groin thing and missed about 9-10 games. But overall, it was pretty healthy. I think this would be a good offseason for him to kind of just rest, rehab, focus on his body, and then get himself prepped for his 23rd season. What do you think?
23rd season, crazy. Yeah, spoiler alert, if LeBron is getting ready for a training camp, that means he's back. I think now it's just a matter of is he just going to let this contract run out, or if he's going to sign another 1-1, right? And so, it's interesting. He obviously had a pretty significant injury. I mean, I know we won't know for a while, but I wonder if the thought is maybe to have him I don't know, rest a little bit early in the season. We know it's a grind. We know it's 82 games. Maybe it's kind of strategic. I mean, I know with him, if he's healthy, he's going to play. I don't think that's going to change even in year 23. But when I hear that, I'm like, okay, maybe they're just going to really slow play this and make sure that he's in tip top 100% shape, because we don't need him in game 7. We need him in game 77 and 82 and obviously the playoffs. So, Luka could hold it down if need be. And so it'll be interesting to see what the team looks like, which I know we'll get into once the season is officially over. It could be Laker talk time, but yeah, it's funny how LeBron, right? It's hey, it's time to get ready for training camp. And that tells us that he's back.
23rd season is just a ridiculous statement. And obviously it's going to be the record. And there's no doubt in my mind he's going to play the next season. It will be interesting to see if they actually try to manage him at all. And the last 2 seasons, when they stopped trying to manage him, he's played the most games he's played on the Lakers.
I know.
Overall, the previous couple seasons before that. So I think he kind of knows what's best for his body in that way. If he's playing, he's playing. I don't think he's the type of player that's going to be I'm going to take a couple games off here and there. Towards that middle, 50 to 60 game mark, that's when he tends to get some sort of ailment. And it's almost when that happens, it's almost a good reset for him because he needs to have a little bit of time off. It's almost like restarting your car. You got to put some maintenance into it and then just kind of get everything going again and get them ready for playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes throughout the season. If they just rely heavy on Luka, who's obviously getting into slim Luka.
I saw that medium on him,
Yeah, so let's see. Luka might be running people out of the gym next year, so we'll see.
Yeah,
but also what do you think of his new commercial too, LeBron? The little Amazon preview about retirement.
Yeah, he's getting a little silly. I know he had that one with when people were when he was talking about a book or something, and the book was backwards or whatever, and then he made a commercial about how he made light of it. So he's kind of in his silly mode right now, I think. And it's just it's anything LeBron does is gonna attract attention, whether if it's one way or the other. And so that it was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I was all right, here we go. He knows what he's doing, trying to spark the retirement rumors, just to get people to watch the commercial. But we all knew he was not retiring this year. I forgot. Oh, somebody was on a podcast. Who was it? Former Laker, former player on there. Oh, no. Actually, no. Current Laker, Dalton Connect, where he was talking about how LeBron told him he could play another 5 years easily.
I saw that.
He was like, yeah, 5 to 10. I could play 5 to 10 years if I wanted to. So we'll see.
I saw that everywhere, and I'm like, is that true? That's crazy. I mean, I'm sure he could, but obviously I don't doubt that's going to happen. But it's just, as you can tell, that's the mindset where it's like, is it going to really be his last year? I'm kind of like set on it in a beam nap, but you never know. At this
I don't know, man. I mean, I think he could. It's just whether or not he wants to. It's kind of like the Brady thing, right? Where Brady kept playing and playing, and then eventually he was like, I could play another year, but I'm just ready to go move on and move to that next step. And you know what that next step is, what I think is going to happen. I think when he retires, it's going to be the same time they announce the Vegas team. And you know who's going to own the Vegas team? It's all set in stone, guys. It's going to be LeBron, Raymond, James Sr. He's going to be owning the Vegas team. We know
Las
that
Vegas jackpot.
Whatever. It would be nice if the Kings weren't around. You just call them the Kings because obviously that makes sense for LeBron.
I like the Aces, but that's already taken.
Yeah, it's already taken.
That's pretty slick.
Blackjack.
Jackpot. No, it's got to be some kind of significance to Vegas, you know?
Yeah, some Vegas home to Vegas, but I don't know. Anyways, I think that's his plan. He definitely, if you saw the Mind the Game podcast, they asked him if he would coach, and you know what he said? Hell to the no.
Saw that.
He would
no
never
chance.
coach. It's just like Kobe. Kobe was never going to coach.
Jordan.
Most of the great players do not coach. They don't have that mentality to have to listen to everybody and try to manage people. They're the superstar. They know exactly what they want, and it's hard for them to show others that as a coach.
Magic tried, that didn't work. You got some, I think Jason Kidd was a real great, obviously Hall of Fame player in his own right. He's probably one. I mean, that took a while to kind of start working out. So yeah, you don't see it that often, but yeah, he's not gonna, I mean, come on. I mean, he said it himself, but ownership, that's a different story. Jordan did it, and LeBron probably has his sights set on that for sure.
Oh, for sure. And the NBA wants it. I'll tell you that.
Yep. Yeah. Expansion's coming, maybe we'll see Seattle and Vegas or something. Yeah. It's coming. It's just a matter of when and which cities. I know Seattle would be pretty cool too. Sure. Hopefully they could bring back the Supersonics name or something. I don't know how that's possible, but that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, Eric. Anything else to kind of wrap up the night before we get on out of here?
No. Always nice to wrap up with a little bit of Laker talk because the season's winding down because you guys are going to get a lot of it soon. We're chomping at the bit to obviously we want the season to go as long as possible, and Sundays is the length that we would like it to go. Yeah. But we will definitely be here for Thursdays, either gearing up for Game 7 or kind of talking about the season that we just had and celebrating a OKC Thunder championship.
That's for sure. And before we get on out, let's show this little comment by Cam Miller. Should have played TJ the last 8 minutes. Yes, Cam, we agree.
I'm telling you, Cam.
We thought TJ should have been in there, especially when you have a hobbled Tyrese Haliburton. And we'll see whether or not Game 6 he's going to have to play like 30 minutes if Tyrese can't really go. Might be a good thing for Indiana to kind of create some space and defense if Tyrese is not fully healthy. If Tyrese looks good, hey, play him and let him do his things. There's always going to be a risk for him playing, but if it's something that he can play through, let's hope he looks like his normal self.
Thanks, Cam Miller, for the continued support. And you're right. He's got to probably, play 28, 30 minutes, and we'll see if, that's what happens in Game 6.
That's for sure. All right, guys. We will be back on Thursday, regardless of what happens. But until then, the Hoops Rehab team is out. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, guys.